welcome to ADHD Friendly. I'm Patty Blinderman. I'm an ADHD coach, as well as the creator of the ADHD Friendly membership community. I invite you to check out ADHD-Friendly.com for lots of resources to support you to tilt that playing field and thrive with ADHD. Got my hair cut. It's very distracting, Becca. I'm not used to it. And it's kind of like not long, not heavy enough to like, all right, it's a thing, but I'm still getting used to it. Okay. So welcome to episode 125.
Oh my
Every time we hit like one of those, like, I know it's not a round number, it's a 5, but every time we hit like an increment of 5, it just like,
look at us.
I know, look at it go. So as always, I'm going to share a celebration. It's a cleaning celebration, Becca. And then I have an ADHD friendly tip tied to cleaning. And then my topic this week, what are you too much of? I know a lot of us have been told that we're too much of something. So I'm going to kind of share what inspired this topic and some examples and even some thoughts about what we can do to support ourselves if it's an obstacle, if what you're too much of is actually getting in the way.
Ooh, sounds good.
All right, so celebration. We're gonna do our I almost feel like Price is Right, or Wheel of Fortune, like something like
white.
Welcome, new subscribers. We're so excited that you're here. So we get to go up another 10s, which is so excited. So we have 9 new subscribers this week.
Thanks, guys.
All right, I'm just gonna hope for a little like more than 4 this week, so I don't have to.
I'll just flip it over.
No, I'm like, don't want to attract that negative energy to me, but yeah, I'd like to, say that's not a thing, but it would bother me. So if you haven't subscribed yet, let's do it. Let's make it flip to the 70s, which is super exciting. But welcome to the new subscribers. Thank you so much to those of you who have been longer term subscribers. This is something that I find very sparkly, and I really do appreciate each and every person who takes the time to check out what we do here at ADHD Friendly. So welcome. All right, and my other celebration is Becca. Because it arrived when you were working last. I got a new carpet cleaner.
Yes.
And it was so sparkly. I do find new cleaning tools absolutely create some interest that is not there otherwise.
Yeah.
So I got that thing out. I got the instructions. It was packaged where everything was in its own little bag or plastic covering or box, and I was like, oh my gosh, can I just like get through all this stuff? But
was it easy
it was pretty easy to get set up and figure out. The directions weren't all that helpful, but luckily it was really kind of intuitive once you had it together.
Good.
And I did the rooms that just the room that you work in and the room.
I noticed.
Did you?
I did.
When I said the topic, I was like, she didn't say anything. So I guess
no,
maybe it's not noticeable.
I did notice, but I didn't say anything because I thought it looked nice. Like it definitely looked cleaner.
It's cleaner.
Yeah.
Now it wasn't a magic worker. I have 3 dogs, and the carpet's not, the newest. So although I can't even blame that because it's just the dogs, but it's better than it was for sure. It was very easy to use. It was very satisfying. It worked just like a vacuum. And it was very satisfying because you just it sprayed the water. And then when you pulled back, it pulled up the dirt. And so I was like,
had that nice line.
Oh, and I just watching all the dirt get sucked in. And I was like,
it's satisfying.
Okay, that was really, really fun. So I felt so good about getting that done. And then literally 2 days ago, so like 3 days or 2 days after I finished, I don't know what the dogs did, but there's actually a scene I can't get out. I don't know what they did, but they did something.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was like mud because it was really wet outside and they were outside, and I have one dog that likes to dig, but I got the machine out and I just spot cleaned it. Nice. And that was really, even though it's not gone, it's so much better than it was. So I'm like, I think I'm just going to get an area rug because the carpet's like cream. Like it's stupidly colory.
It's fun. Can't go wrong with a nice rug.
No. So the new tool, very sparkly, but that leads me into an ADHD friendly tip for this week that I'm calling cleaning motivation. And it was inspired. I read an article, I can't even remember where, but it was talking about how to, kind of troubleshoot if you have ADHD and you have a hard time cleaning.
Oh,
And
okay.
we have to, we can't just create motivation all the time. We have to create interest.
Yeah.
And the interest will drive that motivation. So few things, in my opinion, are as boring as cleaning. If you love to clean, that is to me like magical superpowers. If that's just something that you're just like, I can't wait to get to it. I'm always like,
I have to clean.
yeah, like I need company. I need something new.
Yeah.
A new mop is like stupid exciting to me.
I get it.
That even if the old one worked perfectly, like
Right.
I need,
A
something to
fresh
create
new-
interest. So I always say, cleaning is like kryptonite to me. Like it's
Yeah.
why one of my main goals is to outsource the cleaning, because I just dislike it so much. And I really don't I enjoy it. I always talk about how do you like the process or do you like the product? I don't like the process of cleaning. I love the product. I love it being clean.
Yeah.
I just don't have an interest in being the one that cleans it. So, and that's different than a lot of things. Like I love planning the podcast. I love recording it. I
Yep.
love all of the,
Different
creative
things.
part of that, not the cleaning. So I wanted to talk about some strategies to create that interest, which will create more of that motivation to get started. Maybe listening to something. So, kind of pairing what you need to be doing with something that you are interested in, and you like kind of target it to listen to while you're doing the cleaning task. So maybe listening to a podcast. I have a lot of clients that like true crime podcasts. I'm really into them. Listening to music, maybe having like a music playlist, an audiobook, or this is one of my favorites. I'll just have a movie on in the background, something I've seen a number of times, like Forrest Gump is like a great example for me. I don't need to watch it. It literally plays in my mind like a movie. I can just be listening to it and it entertains me immensely. So if I'm like cleaning in a certain room where I can hear the TV, wherever I am cleaning, that works for me. Another strategy is body doubling. So that person doesn't need to be cleaning with you. They don't even need to be physically with you. You could just get on a call and talk to someone. You could get on a video and you could be cleaning while they're, cleaning or doing their own thing. Or somebody could just hang in the room with you. Maybe they're sitting at the table while you're doing the dishes and cleaning up, but it really helps to have them there. That can be a really good way to get around the boredom of cleaning. Another is what I already mentioned, new cleaning supplies, new cleaning tools, right? It absolutely makes it sparkly. Even just having a clean scent can make a huge difference.
I agree.
So I even, not something I've done, but I know even if you go look at open houses, they'll simmer cinnamon on the stovetop or something. So if there's something that you can do to create a scent, I'm very sensitive to scents and I can have allergic reactions to scents. So it has to be a scent that would pull me into it and make it more likely. And as I was making this list, I even thought, or if it's a foul scent, that actually really works for me. If there's a scent in my house that
you got to get to the bottom of
that's it. I'm like, if it doesn't smell fresh, if I can smell something that I think it smells off, I'm like, oh,
that's it.
That motivates me. So maybe flipping it to something negative could be motivating.
Think about that.
Well, it creates that interest for me because I'm like, okay, these windows need to open.
This smells
let's get out some fresh smell, lemon scented something.
Yes.
And then I just invite, when you think about creating interest, experiment. Experimenting is interesting. So experiment with different strategies to see what helps you to get started, especially when related to cleaning, if that's a challenge for you. So if you have some strategies that help you to create interest, which then leads to more motivation to clean, I'd love to hear them. Post in episode 125, any strategies that you've used that could help us to do it with a little bit more ease. Hello, friends. I'm ADHD friendly girl. Are you overwhelmed, unmotivated, run down? Do you stop before you start? The answer to your challenges can be found at ADHD-Friendly. ADHD-Friendly is where we make the doing easier. Join ADHD-Friendly today and start tilting the playing field in favor of your ADHD brain and start thriving. ADHDfriendly.com, where intention meets action. Our main topic today, what are you too much of? This, ironically, was actually an Entrepreneur magazine article focused on business. So it's not an ADHD topic at all, but as often happens when I read things or I see things, they immediately kind of go through that ADHD friendly lens in my brain. And I was like, this is, totally an ADHD topic, because often we are told or we have a sense of throughout our lives that we're too much of something.
Yep.
I'm going to list a number of things that either I've been told, or I know my clients have shared that they've been called too much of something, or I just know is a area that we might be too much of something. So maybe you're too sensitive, right? Maybe you're too excitable, right? So I always say like too much of something could be even like on the good side. This is one of those things that I can like get like overexcited. It's like, all right, Patty, dial it down, chill out, right? Yeah, exactly. Or too exuberant, right? In that same thing. Side note, I used to play trivia with a couple that are friends of ours, and we went every week, and we went to this place where we had to come up with, it was a different place we were going to play trivia than we normally went, so we needed a new team name. And the host kept saying, I want answers with exuberance. And so it was so annoying that we named our team Lacking Exuberance. Because I don't like being told to cheer.
Right.
Like, I'm like, I want it to be authentic. It always bothered me. So it was just so funny because I was like, well, I'll show you. All right. So too lazy is something that we are often told. And again, we're not lazy. We struggle to get started.
Right.
We can be told we're too loud. Yeah, I know.
I got told I'm too loud plenty of times.
And that's not, again, we're not often even aware that we're being loud or we're being too blank, whatever that blank is. So it's really hard to adjust. Maybe we're too demanding. This can happen if we like to kind of control, maybe too controlling, too nosy, right? So maybe we're asking a lot of questions and we're prying because we're interested, but we're not maybe reading that person and recognizing, oh, this probably isn't something I should be asking. Maybe we're too talkative, right? We just have that running dialogue that we're not like pausing to let somebody else join the conversation or taking turns. Too generous is something that actually comes up a lot. Too kind, right? So we're doing things even if they're not warranted and maybe to our own detriment. So
like
maybe
people pleasing then.
Yes, exactly. Precisely. Maybe we're too forgetful. We leave things behind. We're always losing this, that kind of thing. Too impulsive, where we make decisions. I just told you my impulsive decision. Without like pausing to step back and look, do I have the time to do this? Does this fit in with my other commitments? How is this going to impact my future self? Or maybe we're too intense. One of my favorite things I used to tell my kids, and it literally came out of my awareness that they were completely unaware of their own intensity. And I would be like, you need to pay attention to the energy you bring into a room.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I always like to think about like a conference room, if everybody's kind of somber and talking about a serious topic, you're like, and it's like, okay, maybe we'll talk about that later, but like, we're just like so in the moment, excited about something that we're not necessarily noticing our level of intensity is here and they're here, or we're here and they're here. It's like how to kind of adjust to where other people are. Maybe we're too forgiving. This happens actually very frequently in my experience working with my clients over the years. And the way it looks is we'll forgive people even if they haven't done something they haven't asked for forgiveness, they haven't done something to atone for what they did that hurt us. But it's almost like we don't have the working memory and the bandwidth to hold on to it long enough to wait for that. So we're just like, yeah, I'm over it. But being over it isn't serving us because that person might continue to not treat us with respect or kindly, and we keep forgiving. We can be too quick to anger, right? So too much anger maybe, or too much, of a trigger that creates that kind of stronger, intense, angry response. We can be maybe too dishonest. And by that, I mean, like, maybe we stretch the truth, or we don't tell the truth at times, not necessarily intending to lie, but in the moment, feeling like that's like the only option in front of us. So that can be a challenge. Too late, meaning like we're always running late. So that can be a challenge, or just too ADHD. Just kind of like a blanket, like you're just too much, too ADHD. Mine, I kind of hinted at that I'll just extrapolate a little bit. I've been told I am too exuberant in the morning. I know this is true. I do try to rein it in. But one of the things I wanted to hit on here, and this is where I'm going to hit on it, is how do you manage what you're too much of without denying who you are?
Right.
Which is a real thing I want to acknowledge with our unique ADHD strengths as well as challenges is I never want to encourage us staying small or denying who we are, but I also don't want it to get in our way.
Yeah.
So I know, like for me, I love my morning time by myself because I can be as exuberant as I want and I'm not annoying anyone because nobody else is awake.
Yeah.
And I think over the years, that's one of the things that drove me to get up earlier was so I could have that time to do what I want
Yourself,
without
yeah.
worrying about impacting somebody else. Because I have to say, once somebody else comes down, I'm the only one that's like me in the morning in my home. So I know I have to be mindful that I'm going to irritate the crap out of them if I continue in my, hey, how are you doing today? Good day. Did you see what the temperature is out there? Like I'm just a little much. So again, working with it so it's not getting in my way. I just have a funny story about that. This is where I learned it. I really never knew this. I just, kind of went through my life, and it was when I was in my 30s. And again, I didn't know I had ADHD at this time. And I took a part-time job at the Container Store where I worked unloading, or actually unpacking all of the shipment for the week and putting them up on the shelves. And it was like a race. Like it was like this really high intensity. Everything that was unloaded from a tractor trailer had to be unloaded and put on the shelves. And I think in a 4-hour shift. And so like, it really depended on energy to be kept up. And I was all into it. I was like, I think it was a 4:30 to 9:30 shift or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was all about it. Like, I'm like, once I'm awake, I'm like, let's do it. And I remember there's this one woman there who was very nice, but totally didn't appreciate my exuberance in the morning. And I know that I was irritating the crap out of her. And finally, she just had it with me. And she turned to me, she's like, all right, like you are way too much this time in the morning. And it was the first time I've ever been told I was too much. And again, we can be very sensitive with ADHD. I was so mortified that she was irritated. It was not a, Patty, could you like dial it? No, she was pretty angry with me. And so I remember like, that was where I started kind of not being me and denying my energy. And I was embarrassed that I wasn't even aware of how exuberant I was being. And so it's balance, right? I always call it that Goldilocks level. Like, where can I be myself, but not at the detriment of other people or my relationship with them? And it's not an easy thing to navigate with ADHD. I've been told I'm too shy or introverted. Right?
Really?
Oh, for sure. I know, right? When you talk to me, it's like, I'm really, but this is again, where I know, I even wrote this down. I'm really different and able to manage that one-on-one or small groups. You get beyond like 3 or 4 people and I start kind of, I don't know how, but again, I now know that's a piece of my ADHD brain wiring. I can't hold the thread of different conversations going. It's just too distracting. I find it very draining. I don't like big crowds. I don't like, and I tend to get anxious. Like, oh, what if you wander and you're going to go talk? And then I've got to figure out where I go next to, I just like small, intimate. It just feels calm and safe and manageable. And it works well for my brain. But I know if I have to go to a family gathering and it's like a bigger thing and there's a lot of people, I don't manage that as well. It takes a lot of energy and I have to kind of literally manage it days before and then have downtime right after that so I can recharge. And again, just knowing where can I hit that level. This is something I know. This is one of those examples that you kind of know you are what you are. You can't, because you just can't change it. I am too easily startled. And I lean into this a little bit by sometimes I will go to a scary movie sometimes with my husband because it's one of his favorite things in the world to see me jump, or even I'll scream in a theater. I can't, it's absolutely humiliating. It's one of the reasons I don't like doing it because I feel so embarrassed. And I literally can't stop myself. I'll watch most of the movie with holding my hand over my mouth, trying to muffle it because it comes out. It's such a reflex. I can't, but it gives my husband so much joy. It's
the little things.
Yeah, I know. And the last thing I'll share is I've been told multiple times, and I know this about myself, I worry too much. I'm too nervous, too anxious about things. But then again, I do appreciate it because I can't change how I'm wired. I can change as I shared before, I don't take in the news,
Yeah.
right? Things that create that worry, I don't need more of.
Yeah.
So I manage that by not giving myself more of that intentionally.
Yeah.
I'm really careful about social media. I only, will look at things that make me happy and joyous, not things that make me start judging myself or
Bring you
thinking of
down.
not good at all.
Yeah.
I like literally won't do it. So one of the things that my family does, and I really appreciate this, especially because my two of my kids live in a different state.
Right.
And my son, well, his girlfriend lives like 3 hours from him. He's in this like long distance thing. And he won't tell me when he's driving to go visit her. And
So
I
it's
so
making
appreciate it
nervous.
because I would for 3 hours be looking at my clock going, oh, I wonder if he's there yet. Oh, he'd probably be out here by now. I hope everything's like, it
Yeah.
doesn't serve me, and it worries him to know it's worrying me. So he
Oh.
just doesn't tell me. And I think that is really, really sweet. I actually really appreciate
Yeah.
it because I don't need to know.
No.
It's not needed. It doesn't help me
No.
in any way, shape, or form. And then he tells me afterwards, and I'm like, oh, I hope you had a great time. And I can just be really
Nice and
joyous. Exactly.
Yeah.
So when you think about what you're too much of, what have you been told you're too much of? Is there something I've shared, or maybe there's something else? Again, this is episode 125. And just a couple of ideas when you think about managing this. And again, this is really from my own experience. So I'd love to hear what's worked for you in managing if you're too much and it's getting in the way, right? Again, I don't want to keep you small and not let you express yourself freely. But I know sometimes if we're too much of something in certain environments, it's not going to serve us to reach our goals. So one thing that I intentionally do is I really am mindful of the things that drain my energy, because I am not able to self-regulate as well. None of us are, if our batteries are drained.
Yeah.
Right. So I am cautious of, like, when I think about those times when I'm going to be around loud noises. I don't want to do that in an environment where I also have to regulate myself.
Oh yeah.
So I'm going to minimize
That'd
that.
be
So
a
if I'm
lot.
going out to dinner with people that I'm not familiar with, I don't want to be in a restaurant that's super loud
Yeah.
or super crowded, because it's going to drain me on top of being in
Just
an
trying to listen
environment
to them.
socially, right, that I'm trying to navigate.
Yeah.
If it's really bright lights, I don't like that.
Didn't think about
right?
that.
Or the harsh lights. Like I'll even like walk by people's houses when I go on walks. And if they have, especially like in the holiday time, if they have those super white, shocking lights, it's like hurting my head. Like
Yeah.
I have to do so much energy to avert my eyes down and even look at it.
Yeah.
So just thinking about what would you do to support your energy so that you can manage that level of what you tend to be too much of. So it's serving you, right? It's coming out as a strength instead of getting in your way. The other thing is maybe building in transitions. So I think of those as that, as I shared, that notice the intensity you're bringing into the room. So if you're going into an environment, building a pause, a place to take a breath, just to notice, okay, coming in here, what's my intention? Again, this is easier said than done with ADHD, but just noticing in those transition points, is there a place that you can just kind of ground yourself with the breath is one of my favorite strategies to help to minimize the things that I might go kind of off the deep end. Am I too much of something, instead of at that happy place where I'm more, but that more makes part of like who I am.
Yeah.
So what are you too much of? How do you use it? And what are some strategies to mitigate it so it's not getting in your way? Again, post in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Episode 125. All right. That's it for this week. Instead of a quote from our Kevin Kelly book, I'm going to share from what I'm calling now my book of the week, because I'm so into my reading routine, that I'm like, okay, I could easily share a book of the week, which is crazy to me. I remember one of my favorite podcasts is the Happier Podcast with Gretchen Rubin, and they share a book every week. And I remember when I first started listening, and really until like this month, I was always like, am I always reading a new book every week? Is it possible? Like, that can't be real. Like, it just sounds like crazy. And I'm so excited that ever since I joined the book club here locally at my local library, it's just reconnecting me to reading in such a way that I'm just loving the books that I'm reading. So going to be a segment. Book of the week. This week's book, The Lincoln Highway by Amor Towles. I never know how to pronounce names. So Sorry, Amor, if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly.
What is that about?
So this is from the same author that wrote A Gentleman in Moscow,
Ooh.
which ironically, I do remember reading or trying to read, but I don't believe I finished it. I don't think I loved it. I know it had really good reviews. I just, for whatever reason, lost interest in wait, maybe I should retry it now that I'm back into a good reading routine. But there was a paragraph in here that spoke so much to me about this that I was like, oh my gosh, it kind of is what created the idea to just have a book of the week. Because I do this a lot in books I'm reading. I'll like flag something that I'm like, oh my gosh, this, even though it's not ADHD related, kind of is. So I loved this book. I did find it. It's written in like 6 or 7 different people's voices. So that part's interesting. It is a little repetitive in certain, because like you'll hear like the same story from another vantage point. I don't always love that, but for some reason I was able to get through it. But that maybe that was A Gentleman in Moscow's thing. And at that time that really didn't work for me. I don't know, but I was able to tolerate it in this book. All right, so I'm just going to read this paragraph. It's a little segment. When we're young, so much time is spent teaching us the importance of keeping our vices in check. Isn't this totally relevant?
Yes.
Okay. Our anger, our envy, our pride. But when I look around, it seems to me that so many of our lives end up being hampered by a virtue instead. If you take a trait that by all appearances is a merit, a trait that is praised by pastors and poets, a trait that we have come to admire in our friends and hope to foster in our children, and you give it to some poor soul in abundance, it will almost certainly provoke an obstacle to their happiness.
Ooh.
Just as someone can be too smart for their own good, there are those who are too patient for their own good, or too hardworking. Those who are too confident, or too cautious, or too kind. Too much of. I read this and I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy that it ties directly into our topic for this week. So it was talking about a couple of characters in the book, Wooly and Duchess. And I found both of them very neurodivergent, even though they don't identify. Wooly takes medication. This is set in the 1953. So I'm not quite sure. They don't go into diagnoses specifically, but I do always find that really interesting when I'm reading, to kind of note like, oh, like how were neurodivergences approached back then? And the way that they explain things was such a wholesome, like they didn't intend to do this thing. Like one really quick example, Wooly ended up in a juvenile detention facility because he was so kind. This is like a great example of, of too much kindness, where he came out of into a parking lot from a store and saw the fire truck parked in the parking lot, and it was empty, and he thought it was abandoned and they'd forgotten it. Oh. And the keys were in it. So he decided he would drive it back to the fire station for them so that they would have the fire truck when they needed it.
Right.
And so while he was driving, there was a call made
that he was
for the fire, like a fire call. And the firefighters were inside the grocery store when the call came in. And of course, when they went out to the parking lot, the truck was gone and they weren't able to go. And so it was a barn fire, and the barn burnt down, and it was really sad. Nobody died, but 3 horses were in the barn. So he was charged with taking the vehicle, even though his intention was so pure. And I find that so often with those of us with ADHD, especially around impulsivity, we do what we think is like the kindness or the thing in the moment that is really going to help. And it's not, it kind of backfires. And so this just really resonated with me. So again, The Lincoln Highway is my book of the week. All right, that's it for episode 125. Talked about some cleaning strategies to create interest so we can get motivated to clean with more ease. And then, again, the what are you too much of? If there's something that you are too much of and you have strategies, or you have a cleaning strategy, again, episode 125. Love to hear about it. That's it for this episode. As always, take what works for you, leave the rest behind. We always thrive when we lean into holding on to the things that work and letting go, so we're not carrying extra baggage of the things that just aren't going to serve us. If you haven't checked out ADHD-Friendly.com, I invite you to do so that you can start using some of the tools. There's free tools on there. There's lots of information. And there's also a place where you can learn more about the ADHD-Friendly membership community if you're looking for more support to thrive with ADHD. Until next time, tally ho.